everyone, and welcome to Fuzzy Talks episode 4. How is everyone doing? I hope everyone is great, as I am. I have just dropped the kids off to school, and I've got the whole day today to myself, which is wonderful. I have got a few things to do, like get my cooking done, but I thought I'd record this session today before I start doing the housework. You know, there's always housework. As you know, if you've got a busy family life, always housework. I've got work tomorrow, so I want to get much as I can done today. I have to say, I have been more productive now than ever before. And I've mentioned in my previous podcast about being able to use the Quran and certain surahs from the Quran that's helped me be more productive. If you haven't watched that podcast, that's on my podcast number 3, I believe, about how to implement Surah Baqarah in your life. And honestly, it has been a game changer for me. I actually implemented it a year ago, I think a year and a half ago. And honestly, it's changed the way I do things. I don't waste time anymore. I've got 2 jobs. I've got a busy house full of kids, and I'm running 3 YouTube channels. Yes, 3 YouTube channels. I'm not going to mention what the other 2 are because I don't want to, interlink any of them. So I have different audience for all 3 of them. So I'm going to keep it that way. But today I want to actually talk about ADHD. And I know everyone's fed up of hearing about ADHD, and some people. This is a personal experience with ADHD. I have not been diagnosed with ADHD, but, and here's the but, I do believe, and family members have said to me that they believe I have ADHD, and not the ADHD with a hyper deficit disorder, not that one. I think they believe that I've got ADD without the hyper. And it's because majority of the symptoms of ADHD I do have, and I'm saying ADHD because no one really says ADD. So everyone knows it as ADHD, so I'm using it as a big umbrella over it. So I didn't know, I thought I had it. I think a few years ago when I had my last child, my sister said to me, I think you've got ADHD. And when she said that to me, sorry, I shouldn't swear. I actually got really offended with her, and I took it really hard. Like, why are you saying that to me? You can't be diagnosing people. I took it really hard. I thought it was so offensive. How dare she said I've got ADHD? Because I thought of it as like this learning difficulty disorder. I didn't know much about it. The only time I kind of knew about ADHD was when I had my first child, and one of my friends, she had a child before me, and she said that her child was diagnosed with ADHD. So I just thought he's just so hyper, probably that's why. And I thought he's got hyper, he doesn't listen. That's the image I had of ADHD. But when my sister said that, she planted a seed in my head, and I had to do research and think, what's she talking about? And then when I did my own research, and believe me, and I don't need an official diagnosis because I can function. I know some people, they have difficulty in functioning. I don't have that issue, thank God. But I know people who do, they need medication. I don't need that. Doesn't mean I don't have ADHD. It just means I just deal with things in different way. So the reason why I'm mentioning it is, since I believe that, since I've been told that I think you have ADHD, and I did my own research, and I found majority of this symptoms from my childhood, that I couldn't understand and fathom why my brain worked different than everybody else's. It just clicked in place, and I was able to look back at my childhood and my present life, and I said, my God, it's true. You know, there's nothing wrong with people who have ADHD. It's not I know a lot of people have been diagnosed because they wasn't diagnosed. There was underlying issues, and some people needed that diagnosis. I don't believe I need to go doctors and wait for that official doctor's certificate to say I am ADHD. But I think knowing that in my head, I can forgive myself for all the things that I did in my childhood, because I used to feel bad for certain things that I couldn't achieve, or my brain worked in a different way. Um, and it kind of, looking back at my childhood, and I can forgive my childhood in a way. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I know what I'm talking about. That now I look at myself and I'm more forgiving and I'm more understanding. And you know what? I read about people with ADHD. They have this, certain people with ADHD have this superpower. And I'm using that superpower that I believe I have. Because before it was like, uh, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me, but I don't know what it is. But because I was so spontaneous, I was doing this and I was doing that. And because I'm a girl, I think, and back then, I'm talking about the 80s, this kind of thing was just brushed under the carpet. Schools didn't recognize it. I can go back to my childhood and I can finger point certain kids who probably did had ADHD, who probably did have learning difficulties. At the end of 80s, I think dyslexia was something that they were recognizing in London, because I grew up in London, and I was never diagnosed as dyslexic, but one of my siblings was, and I do believe I had dyslexia as well, and dyscalculia, because my math was terrible. It's only improved now as I've got older and I know how to manage it. But all these things, it doesn't define me. I know you don't need a diagnosis, but at least you can, having that, if people do find that they need that diagnosis, that helps them in life. I know people with medication who are on ADHD medication, and it really helps them, because people who go through it understand the background noise, the noise in your head really overtakes everything. And that happened to me as a child, and I couldn't figure it out. The anxiety, the overthinking, the over analyzing, the relationships that you break. You can't keep friendship groups too long. And this is things I went through. And I did not believe I had ADHD. And I'm going on about it. I don't need any help. I just have strategies how I deal with it now, because I understand it better. I did research, and I have to accept myself who I am and excel with what provisions God given me in terms of what my abilities are. And I've been more happier in my 40s than I was in my 20s or my teens, definitely more than my teens. In my 20s, I had loads of challenges come up to me. And I think one of my challenges that now I look back at it, and that actually makes me a bit emotional. That makes me a bit emotional, because if I had known, I could have worked with the strategies that I know now. That would have helped me in my 20s, um, before I had gotten married. I think um, being able to say no. And when I researched about ADHD people, sometimes they find it's hard to say no, and they don't really think about themselves. They think about other people's needs first. And I could relate to that to a T. Even though I didn't never express it, as when I was in my 20s, I didn't know how to articulate those kind of feelings, because talking about your feelings, it wasn't a thing. Especially I'm from the South Asian community. Who would you talk about these feelings to? Because my parents were from the first generation, and I'm the second generation. And the communication barrier that we had, it was very difficult, honestly. So you were in your own head and constantly battling these thoughts in your head. And now I can comprehend in my 40s, coming up to my late 40s, that these are the things that I can talk to my kids and relate to them. If anything is, I do believe one of my child has ADHD. He's never been diagnosed, but I feel one of my child is so much like me. He's got the same personality, and I can see the traits in him. And I know people are just diagnosing left, right, and center. When you know someone's got it, you just know it. So I just can help him more, and I have told the school, try to get interventions for him. because he's just beginning to be his early teens. So I want all the help and resources so he can manage his symptoms when things get too much. And for an ADHD brain, things can get too much quickly and fast, and their emotions get hold of everything. And I know that because I've been in that situation. And I hope anyone who's listening, even if they're younger than me and if they're in the same age bracket, that if you don't, if you feel guilty just to say, oh, I got ADHD, so people will say, oh, not another one. Own your thing and express yourself and do your own research and see how you can help yourself. It doesn't have to be always medication. It could be talking therapy. Like me talking to you guys, this is therapy for me, honestly, because obviously you can speak to counselors and therapists, but talking out loud, and I think that helps. But it's years of dealing with it in your head, and I think you have to accept it. And it's no shame in it, because lots in life you're not gonna get. Life is not always gonna go smooth sailing. You're gonna have obstacles. I don't see it as a negative thing. I just see it as something I have to just overcome and use strategies. It could have been worse. At least we've got all these resources online and see how other people's journey has been. And I don't know if I'm helping anyone really, but this is me telling my journey, how I found it quite, before at the beginning, I found it quite flabbergasted that someone could say I got ADHD when I didn't even know much about it. I just knew the basics. And now I'm embracing my ADHD, dealing with it and accepting myself how I am. For years in my head, I think something wrong with me, the way I think, the way I do things, where my emotions take hold of me. And now anything that I struggle with, I use strategies. And I know that I'm not going to make instant decisions, spontaneous decisions that will affect me, even to this day, because the traits are still there and it's just constant battle. I think before I talk, before I should just lash out on people using my emotions, relationships that I'll break not thinking. And that was part of my ADHD. I used to go red straight away. My teenagehood was a nightmare. And now I look back at it, majority times because of my emotions. I couldn't regulate my emotions. So this is just, my little catch up with you guys to let you guys know nothing wrong with having ADHD, and just embrace it, try and navigate around it. And if people do need medication to help them, and there's nothing wrong with that, it's how you feel you can deal with it. There's no right or wrong. And that's all I want to say, really. I hope I helped anyone going through it, and it certainly helped me accepting it. And I know I haven't got the official diagnosis. I don't want to wait around for few years to get that official diagnosis. What's the point to have it on piece of paper? I know some people, but you don't know you got it. You need someone specialist. You just know when you look at the notes. You think just highlights in your head like, the light bulb just goes on, and you're like, that's it. That's what I had, and everything goes in the jigsaw, and I can go back and look at my pattern of my life and I say, yes, my parents didn't understand me. My peers didn't understand me. I was always the odd one out. Sorry, I'm just taking a break. I'm going to leave it right now. Thank you for watching.